we talk about your book, Believe It. I think what I love is that you share a lot of these mistakes or these life lessons. You do a lot of reflection. And one thing you mentioned was that, hey, I wish I knew right off the bat that when you are presenting a new idea, which is essentially what you were doing at the time to change the way we viewed the beauty industry, to use real people. Imagine that. People that look like you and me that have real skin conditions. But the fact that you were so shocked that they couldn't see it in your eyes, but when it's never been done before, and that's where a lot of people I feel like they're pounding their heads against the wall saying, look, why can't you see it how I see it? Like, this is the future. I work in news. I remember getting, called into the office because I started talking about Twitter on the air and saying, hey, follow me on Twitter, because I was doing traffic at the time and it was in real time and it was fast. And I got called in and the boss said, don't promote other websites on our air. You need to send them to our news site. And I kept saying, no, but this is different. And it was just this constant fight. When you see something that others don't, it can be really defeating too, as you mentioned. And you talk about that, and also being able to choose to turn that volume up or to turn it down.
Yes. What you just shared is so, so important. If I had learned, and here's the thing is, when I wrote this book, it's not just about like, how did I build at cosmetics? It's really a book for every woman, every person who wants to overcome self-doubt and learn how, right? And the lesson that you just shared that I think is so important is, anytime we're doing anything that's new or novel or hasn't been done before, what I've realized and learned time and time again now, and wish I learned earlier. And by the way, it could be launching a company, but it could also be showing up on social media in a certain way. It could be putting our art or our blog or our book out into the world. It could be anything that we're doing. And what I learned is that most experts, even the most touted visionaries, they have the hardest time imagining something being successful unless it's already been done before, unless there's subconscious proof in the back of their mind that tells them, oh yes, this has been done before and it succeeded. Therefore, I think this will work. Anybody in your community listening to this, anyone listening, watching us right now, when you show up authentically, which is the only way to have real connection, real human connection, right? With another person, with your online community, with your customers. When you show up authentically as a person or as a brand, it's by definition never been done before. It's by definition new or novel. So don't be surprised when so many of the experts who are awesome and mean so well, or when friends and family around you who are often awesome and mean so well, don't be surprised or your partner, don't be surprised when they can't imagine it succeeding. And that lesson is huge, because sometimes we hear other people's discouragement and it's easy to internalize it and start doubting ourselves, or start doubting our idea, or start doubting our talent, or doubting our gift. You almost have to get really good at cheering for yourself when you're someone who is going to go after a dream, or is going to pursue a goal, or is going to put your heart out into the world. Because what I've learned, and now I know so many people that share this in common too, is like, most people, even though they mean well, they typically only cheer for you after you've made it.
Yes.
Right? They cheer for you after you got the show, or after your company is doing well, or after people are buying your book. But in the process, they're like, are you sure? Are you qualified? Why are all the stuff, right? And so the other lesson, I talk about this a lot and Believe It, that you'd mentioned, is about the idea of volume. Here's the thing. A lot of us have people in our family. It could be our parents, our partner, our friends that have been childhood friends. So we don't want to be like, peace out, but they're still in our lives. But when we realize every time we share an idea or a dream with them, we start to, their own self-doubt starts to like project onto us, and we start to talk ourselves out of it, or lower our own vibration. And so, one of the tools I talk about in Believe It in the book is just this idea of learning to really control your own microphone, right? You're in news,
Yes.
so you know this so well, but it's like, if you imagine, like, every one of us, right? My friend Bob Goff taught me this. I don't think any relation to Angie Goff.
No, but I love him to death too.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Before our interview, I'm like, oh, I'm excited. This is going to be another goth I love so much. So
I think we follow each other on Twitter, and I have his books.
Just like you, he's like this light in the world that's just amazing. And I was in a conversation with Bob Goff, just a small group of people, and he was talking about this idea of the microphone. I started practicing it in my life, and it was so life-changing that I asked his blessing to be able to write about it in my book. So I wanted to share it with everyone on how to do this. But what he said, because this started with someone who was talking about like that she loves her parents, but anytime she talks about her hopes and dreams, like she feels so judged and she starts to just like doubt herself. And, what do you do in that case when you don't want to be like, peace out, mom, I'm out of here, but you want to love the people around you, but you also want to become who you are and all of who you are, right? And his advice, it was so good. I literally wrote like half a chapter about how to do this. Was he said, imagine we all have our own microphone that we're holding. We decide, just like a television news reporter, when you see them on the streets and they hand their microphone to someone, they typically never let go of that microphone, or that eyewitness takes the mic and runs, right? It goes on for hours. You hold on your mic and then you decide when to take it back. And he said, in life, imagine that we all have our own microphone and we decide who we hand it to and on what topics, right? So his solution that I thought was so brilliant, I talk a lot about how to do this, is, maybe when we realize, we start to do an audit of who's around us, who is our circle of friends, who's our circle of colleagues, who do we go to the gym with? And we start to just pay attention. Oh, when I talk to this person about this, I instantly feel like, so I start doubting myself, or I instantly then don't feel like I have what it takes. So what you do is you take the microphone back from them on those topics, meaning, you talk to, maybe it's your mom or your partner, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't have a circle around us in our own homes or in our lives where they understand our hopes and dreams. So, for a lot of us, what we have to learn to do is talk to them about the weather, about what's on tonight on, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. What's on Fox 5 tonight? What's for dinner? What's on whatever? Who got picked on The Bachelor? Whatever it is, and you still have those relationships, but then you take your microphone back from them on things like, I'm writing a book and I'm going to share my story with the world, or I'm going to start a big social platform, or whatever it is, or I want to go run a marathon. And we find people in our lives that we're able to share that connection with. And maybe they're people we've met online. Maybe it's a mentor from afar. For me, it was Oprah for years, long before I had met her. When I would watch her, I felt my own vibration rise. I felt like, oh, where I come from doesn't determine where I'm going. And so for me, even though I hadn't met her yet, it was someone I wanted to hand my imaginary microphone to. Mm-hmm. And so I talk about how we can do that in our lives. And I think it's so important because if we don't learn to do that, I think it prevents us from ever becoming all of who we are.
Oh, absolutely. So in a sense, I mean, we just have to become better audio operators, right? Decide when to tune people in and tune them out.
I have two really fun rounds that I want to do before I close. But one thing I want to say, Ed, that I think is really unique to you. And I know that you haven't always been this way, and maybe it's part of your own growth, but I feel like you do something I rarely ever see done publicly, and that's that you are not afraid to show vulnerability. You're not afraid to show sort of these beautiful, what would normally look like contrasting things. And what I mean by that is you're this dude with muscles, and then you're like narrating your two Pomeranians' day, Daisy and Lily, right? You are, you're setting the stadium like on fire. People just their lives are being so impacted, and then you're also very introverted. You know what I mean? There's kind of this contrast. You do it so well, I think, even with, sharing real direct, very direct, confident statements or tools or tips. But then you'll share how, you're not feeling so well, and this is happening. It's sort of this contrast of showing all sides of you. And I'm just, I'm just wondering how you got to that place, because a lot of people are scared. They show up not just on social media, but in their day-to-day lives as part of who they are, but not as all of who they are. How did you get to this place of showing up like and with a confidence as all of who you are?
Great question. Most people are pretty complex, and I am. I mean, there's a lot of simple things about me, but I'm a pretty complicated person in that sense. Like I am really, really intense, and then I'm hopefully, pretty kind person. I think that I do it because I just got tired of trying to pretend I was perfect. I just got tired of it. Like I want people to have hope, not idolization. And so I want people to go, hey, if this guy...
Hold on. Yeah. You want people to have hope, not idolization.
Right.
How many people out there right now are just, that's not their priority? That is huge, Ed, what you just said.
Thank you. And the people that were my idols, once I met them, I was like, whoa, wait a minute here, right? So I want people to go, hey, this is a flawed, imperfect person, which we all are. And man, I'm watching this guy fight to really change who he is and get better and grow. And he's obviously learned a lot of tools for doing it. In fact, the reason that I'm so into personal development, self-improvement, self-confidence, all these other things is for me to just become a baseline functioning person, I had to have these tools. And then when I got to baseline, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we could take this further and actually be, happier and successful. So I want to show that. I want to be able to not show. It's not even showing. It really isn't. It's just like, here it is. Yeah. I'm not conscious like I'm going to show. I'm just like, this is me. Like I'm a really intense dude. I love to compete, but I really love people. And also, I think over time, as we age, we change. I think, the 25-year-old me probably would be totally unwilling. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I think a lot of people would tell you even then I was that way. But maybe I'm a little bit more unafraid to just say, hey, listen, I have fears and insecurities, and I made this mistake with my son, and, I love God, and I love my dad, and, I have fears, and I think that hopefully by hearing those things, you go, well, man, if he could do it, I could do it. This is not some perfect person who's got it all figured out. I'll just say this, I've got some things figured out. And that's better than I used to be. And if I could give you what I know, maybe I could save you a bunch of time, a bunch of mistakes I made, speed up your happiness and success through all the mistakes I've made. So I also love people like you. And this is where all this kind of comes together. I love really confident people who have a ton of humility. And I don't love confident people who don't have humility, and I'm not really interested in being around a bunch of humble people who have no self-confidence. Self-confident people who have humility are curious. They want to learn, they want to grow. Self-confident person without that, they're hard to be around. You know this. And they eventually probably make a mistake or burn out or whatever. And then our humble friends who we love so much, they're just hard to take through life with you if they have no self-confidence. It's like, come on, you can do it, let's go. And so I love people who tread that nuance really well. You do that as well as anybody I've ever met before. Like there's this strength of a woman in there. Like there's this, and I've watched you defend me in different situations. Like there's this really strong, confident woman who knows who she is, but so humble, so much humility that she still has this other part of her that's, and also wants to learn, wants to grow, values other people, right? Like humility is, I think, sometimes just the value of other people. And when you have all this self-confidence and no humility, it's like, are you the most important person? Yeah. So hopefully over time I've nuanced that pretty well.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, even when you're doing animal voices on your, I think it's beautiful because I think people at home are like, oh, I do that too. And I think it's just this beautiful kind of like showing all sides. And, I want to say it's obviously no accident. Millions and millions of people connect with you, your shows. And you are one of the few people who does a really good job at showing both sides of things. You'll have somebody, talk about politics, you'll have somebody extremely left one day and the next day someone extremely right. Yeah. You'll show both sides of everything, never even sharing where you're at. And you, I've always felt this, and this has always kind of just been dumbfounding to me that I feel like the quickest way to get dull in life is to only surround yourself with people that think the way you do.
Yes.
Right? And so many people only surround themselves with people who think the way that they do.
Oh, that's the thing to do now, isn't it? You
It is right now.
You only be around people who share your political beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your life beliefs. You know what's really the truth, and you know this, you ain't learning very much from them. You very rarely learn anything from anybody who completely agrees with you on everything.
Yeah.
And even in your companies, you know this, when we're building the company, I want people who disagree with me. I want people who challenge me. I want people with a diverse background. I want people who come at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And so I have lots, as you know, and so do you, and we laugh about some of our mutual friends that disagree with stuff with each other. My dad and I disagreed on a lot of stuff. One of the most interesting, fascinating things about my dad was we didn't agree on political things all the time. We certainly didn't agree on religious things all the time. Our outlook on all kinds of stuff was very different. To say that my dad and I are the same person in that regard isn't true. My favorite person, that an adult person in my life is my dad, and me and him disagreed on lots of stuff, and I learned lots of stuff. And some of the things over time, I do think more like him again. But I don't want people around me all the time who agree with me, and I don't want people all the time around me that just agree with everything I think. How boring. You're right. No, you're right. No, you're right. Oh, we're both right.
We're both right.
Isn't this crazy? And they're so this, and they're
destiny.
so that. And it is so our culture now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so our culture. And and every facet is trying to put us in these camps. Like, you're over there. You're one of those. You're one of those. I'm one of these. And man, that is absolutely not how this thing's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% counter to how the world is supposed to work. I promise you, of all the things we talked about today, I'm the most sure of what I'm telling you right now, that we are supposed to be different. There's supposed to be diversity of thought, of behavior, of background, of culture, of religion, of ethnicity. The diversity in our world is the strength of this world. And if there was ever a leader who rose up and said, I'm embracing that, and I'm not even going to let you play your game where you're pitted against one another.
Yeah.
Oh man, would we change the world?
There's so much in this book, and this book is not my story. This book is 20 plus tools on building unshakable self-worth. But I weave some stories in here I've never shared before because
it qualifies you, Jamie. This qualifies you. And go ahead. You said because.
Well, I almost took these stories out so many times.
Yeah, you told me you were thinking about it. I didn't know what they were until I read it. But thank God you didn't.
I just kept remembering the intention of this book. It is not about me. Like for anybody listening to us right now who feels like their past and their failures and their mistakes and the people they've hurt and the things that they feel like, as you would say, disqualify them from their dreams, right? Like so many people feel that way, and they're staying here thinking, oh, I failed so many times, that means I'm a failure. They let it take root at an identity level. I've been rejected so many times, I'm a reject. Or I've made so many mistakes and bad decisions, I'm a mistake. And that is a lie. It is a lie that impacts our self-worth. It's a lie that you can unlearn. But here's the problem. I was at a moment in my life, I'm waitressing at Denny's, I have big dreams on my heart, and I start to miss the fact that I'm crushing numbers every week and that I'm having all of this sales success and all this attention and this money. And I'm like, okay, I'm waitressing at Denny's, busting my butt, hoping that someone throws a few dimes on the table because I'm in a college town where everyone has no money. And here's what happened, Ed, and this is for everybody listening. When we have low self-worth, even when we don't realize it, we get confused about a few things in life that are key. We get confused when we do not feel we are enough as we are. Attention starts looking like love. External significance starts looking like success. Validation from others starts looking like worthiness. And I was missing all of those things that I thought were love and worthiness. And the way it manifested in my life is I drove to the biggest city. I've never shared this before. I drove to the biggest city about an hour and a half away. Didn't even know what I was going to do, frankly. I was just like, stopped at an adult entertainment club, also known as a strip club, walked inside, saw all of these waitresses in these black pants and white shirts, and then all of these dancers not wearing anything. I remember the first time I walked in, there was like 30 or so patrons, men sitting in the audience, and I talked to a waitress there, and she told me like she makes a few $100 a shift selling sodas. They didn't even have alcohol there, selling sodas. And I literally applied for a job and got hired that day in the strip club. And I would waitress all week at Denny's, and I'd drive up there on the weekends, and then I'd waitress in the strip club. Now wearing black pants, a white shirt, but thinking, maybe I'll also dance, right? And in that club, for me in that moment, two big things. One, attention. I was confusing attention with love. Yeah. I started dating someone who is a patron of the club. And I remember there was this moment where he took me to a firing range. And I'm out in the middle of nowhere in some city I don't know anybody in, with this dude I barely know, holding this gun at a firing range, and we're shooting targets. And I remember it was so loud, and I was like, okay, like he loved it, a lot of people love hobbies like that. And I was just like, I was more scared than I was interested at that point. And I remember just sort of losing connection with him over time. And eventually one night he drove me home from the strip club about an hour and a half back to my college apartment. And I decided to break up with him. Yeah. And in that moment, I remember looking in the back of his Jeep and seeing all of these guns and just going, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. Like, what am I doing with my life?
Even made sure the door was unlocked.
Yeah. Because I was like going through my head, like, because when I broke up with him, he got really quiet and I got really scared. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I was like making sure the door was unlocked because I had to dive out in the middle of the highway. Like, it was so scary. And I remember he dropped me off at my college apartment and we never spoke again. But that moment was a low for me in the sense where I was like, what am I doing with my life? And, you often talk about the thermostat example that, if we believe we're a 75 in identity or self-worth and things go lower, we'll warm it back up a little bit. And at that moment, a couple big things happened in my life that I share in the book that helped me start to build self-worth and to believe I'm enough. But here's what I want to say. There's a lot of things like this and others that I share in the book because I could have gone, okay, no one in my family has ever gone to college, or I've done these kind of things or hung out with these kind of people. I talk in the book about getting arrested for the first time and dating a guy who stole cars all the time. And
14 years old.
Yeah. And what it was like to be booked into juvie and just like all of these things where I could have said to myself, like, all the things I've done that are bad means I'm bad. And that's one of the biggest lies we are so tempted to tell ourselves. All the things in my past that I'm embarrassed of or ashamed of or mortified of, or the mistakes I made or whatever it might be, mean I'm a mistake. And it's a lie. And we attach these labels to ourselves. I have a whole chapter in Worthy called Labels, and how we believe these labels that someone else has said about us or that we've stuck on ourselves. We believe they're permanent. Yep. And we let them take root, but they're not. They're like Post-it notes with that light adhesive. You can peel them right off, right? And I go through how to do that. But I could have doubted myself out of my own destiny, right? A lot of people, if they Google my story, you won't find any of this. Yep. What you find is, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company. Right. She's on the Forbes list. She taught a class with Oprah this year. Yeah. You see all that. Yep. And you might think like, things like that happen to other people, not people who have made so many mistakes like I have, or not people who have been through what I've been through. And I finally decided to keep some of the stuff in the book because this book is not about me. It's for every single person who has some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill. And here's the thing I want to say too, Ed, about this is I believe, every person listening, I believe our steps are ordered. I believe our lives are divinely orchestrated. And let me tell you something right now. When I built It Cosmetics, when we have millions and millions and millions of paying customers in the US and built this whole movement, like, it was not an accident I worked in a strip club. It wasn't an accident I waitressed at Denny's. It wasn't an accident that I was selling in the health club and understood what it's like to love someone else at the expense of loving myself. I believe, because what I learned, that my friends who work with me in the strip club, in the adult entertainment club, my friends there, are the same as my friends sitting next to me in my college classes, as the professors teaching, as the people waitressing with me at Denny's, as the now fellow CEOs and fellow billionaires I know, right? They're the same. At our core, we all want to know we're enough, that we're worthy of love and belonging. Every one of us, we're the same.
I've never been more proud of you. The reason I'm just sitting here watching you is like, when I read it, I was proud of you, but to see you talk about it, it's even another level to have to verbalize it, I think. And I just hope everyone gains some measure of hope. You know, that who would have pictured this girl who's working at the fitness club, dating a guy basically double her age, and you're going to go, don't worry. Someday, young lady, you're going to reach millions of people on stages and inspire them to change their life. And then fast forward a little bit, and you're with this dude you meet in a strip club that you're working at, and just you're not treating yourself, betraying yourself, to use your words earlier, and say, don't worry, young lady, someday you're going to sell your company for over $1 billion. I just hope all of you gain some hope from this, and that if you have somebody in your life who's currently making a mistake or not living true to their integrity or their character, send them this interview. So have them go get the book. How inspiring. She must be perfect. She just worked hard as a waitress. No, there's some mess in there, and your mess does not disqualify you. And I think the other reason it's so powerful, Rory said this first on the show, and you and I talk about it a lot too, but you're most qualified to help the person or people you used to be. If you used to be so perfect, who are you here to help? But all of you just realize that this woman who's built this remarkable life, she's literally one of the most admired women currently living on earth. She is one of the most admired women, one of the most admired people on the planet right now. She's the person in my life outside of family that I admire the most, right? To think that at some point she was dating some dude double her age, working in a gym, getting attention, letting him date other women, that she would see the other women he was dating. It wasn't like he was hiding it. Then she goes to work at a strip club. And before that, she was arrested at 14 years old. This is not perfect little Jamie that everybody thinks they know. This is someone who's a flawed human being who's worked on her worthiness and has the pathway to do it in her life.
I just feel it's, what if, I guess I was thinking this, which is, what if this, how are we going to get there? This puzzle, this map, we wish so much that somebody would just deliver to us. What if it's so close that we are constantly just tripping over it? Like, what if the portal, the door to all of it is the simplest yet most untapped thing that we've ever done, which is just to fully believe in it. And then it's like, you know, we were talking about Sherry Salata before, and she said to me, when people say, you know, how do you become successful? You were executive producer of Oprah, you know, every successful person over the last 3 decades, you know them. And what is it that you all have in common? And she said, it's not what are you doing? It's who are you being? It's who are you being, right? And I thought so much about Oprah reading your book because you talk about her in here, but I feel like what you have in common with her is there was a resonance, it was a vibration, it was a knowing, and it was a stepping into that knowing. And it was just that. And so it is. And it's like, and from there, the next piece of the how was revealed because you stepped in. But what do you say to people when they're like, no, it can't be that. It has to be that there's some formula or some degree or some add whatever you want to the list of things I need in order to accomplish the thing, which will never happen. How do you help people really get that believing in it really is there for them?
Yes. And what you just described, the last 5 seconds of what you just described is literally somebody talking themselves out of their own calling. It's us talking ourselves out of our own calling because it's more comfortable to do that because all those things, right? And, but again, oh my gosh, I feel like it comes at the price of the person you're born to be, right? And here's what I'd say to that question. I think it's easy to go, yeah, that girl, Jamie, yeah, she was a Denny's waitress and she bagged groceries at a grocery store and pushed grocery carts in and all those things but maybe she just got lucky or whatever, right? Maybe she just like all those things. And here's what I've learned and here's what I believe. I do not think that where you come from determines where you're going. I don't think that any of the opposition you face in life, whether it's people rejecting you, people not believing in you, like I've gone through so many years of rejection, and I share the story in this book of, 3 years of like I created this product, and I had this dream, right? Because I have hereditary rosacea on my cheeks, and I could never find makeup that would work for it, and I was working as a television news anchor. I knew nothing about the beauty industry and, took a big risk and poured all of our money into this business. And I finally created something that worked for me. And I really thought this was going to be huge. But I also wanted to use a different type of model than the beauty industry was typically using, because I had this realization, right, that my whole life, because I was like, why can't I find something that works for me? I never realized nothing out there, no other products work for me. And in realizing, wait a minute, okay, my whole life, all I've seen is images of models where they're, they all look, they're photoshopped, airbrushed on commercials on television and in magazines. And I've never actually seen anyone that has rosacea on their face and on top of it, how do you even know if they're wearing the product they're advertising? Like all these things. And I had this big,
such a good point,
company, right? Where I was like, okay, for me, and I know you talk a lot about this too, about, your why and your mission for, why so many of us identify the why behind what we're doing. And it's interesting because I realized early on that when I created this product that finally worked for me, like, yeah, of course, that was a part why of why I did it. Wanting to help so many other people out there that couldn't find anything that worked for them, make their lives easier and better, was also part of my why. But what I did early on, just to share this tangent for a quick second, in case it adds value to anybody listening, because I feel like so many people in their careers, when they're going after their dreams, I feel like they'll identify their why, but it just sounds good. And it's actually not like deep enough, right? Like they'll say, oh, I want to do this because I want to buy a house, or I want to help my kids with college, whatever it is. And those are great, awesome whys. And they sound so good. But like, unless it's deep to your core, it's not going to be strong enough to prevent you from quitting when times get tough, right? And I've done a lot of things wrong in my journey, but one of the things I did right was early on, I just peeled back those layers of why am I? And by the way, going through 3 years of hearing everyone say no to you and getting down to under $1,000 in my bank account and not knowing if my company was going to make it. Like when you go through all that opposition, when you have no proof of success around you and you have no one saying this is going to be amazing, you're going to do so good. And like, every time I checked in with my gut, I felt like I was on the right track. But what also kept me going was like, I really did the work early on of peeling back the layers on like the why, deep beneath the why. And for me, it was like, oh, because I had this realization, because no other makeup would work out there. I had this realization that I wasn't just doing this to make a great product. It was like, oh, I'm going to launch this company. I'm going to use women that are models of, and men and every gender identity of whatever age, size, skin tone, skin challenge. I want to use all kinds of models and call them beautiful models and mean it, right? And because what I realized is, oh, in this journey of trying to find a product that worked for me and I couldn't, I realized my entire life, even since growing up as a little girl, every time I would see these images in magazines, like I'd see them and I would aspire to look that way. But they also always made me feel like I wasn't enough, always. Right. And my deep why, like for this not giving up after during years and years of no's, was like, I wanted to shift culture in the beauty industry around inclusivity, but also around the types of images used as models and the definition of beauty. And I wanted to do that for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and like every grown woman who still does. Yeah. And like that is what drove me through all of it. Anyhow, it was so many years of opposition and of hearing no's from anyone. And to your question on, well, what's the difference? But, like, what would you say to people who are like, oh, here's the deal. At the end of the day, and this is after going through so much, like we could talk for 50 million hours about the stories in this book that I've never shared. But like one of the big things to share is that I believe, and I believe every single person has what it takes to go from like underestimated or facing opposition or filled with self-doubt in their own head, to go from unstoppable. I believe every single person can do it. And I really, truly believe the first criteria for that is that they need to want to, right? They have to want to. And a lot of people just decide, oh, for all these reasons, this isn't possible for me. I believe step one is deciding you want to. And after that, it comes down to mastering belief. And that's hard. But when I look back on my journey, when so many people are like, how did you start with nothing and build $1 billion company from your living room? It's like, yeah, I worked really, really, really hard. Too hard, frankly. I worked really hard. And I didn't give up. Like every time I got knocked down, another no. Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, I cried myself to sleep so many nights, but I didn't give up. But to me, that is just like the price of admission for being an entrepreneur that keeps a business going. For me, the single biggest thing, and I would say this to everybody, despite what their dream is, but like for me, building $1 billion business from my living room, the single biggest thing I did right was like, I made the decision to believe that I could. Yeah. And that is why I wrote this book, because I believe that, it doesn't matter if someone's dream is to get on the PTA board and decide they like the other women. I don't know it doesn't matter what your dream is. To me, learning the steps of and being on the journey of breaking through, learning how to break through that self-doubt, tuning it out, tuning out other people's opinions, and truly, because so many people can't even hear their own intuition, truly learning how to hear your own gut and tune into and learning to trust yourself. And then learning how to truly believe that it's possible for you to become all that you are and all you're called to be. That I believe that's possible for everyone. And that really is why I wrote the book.
Yeah. And you do such a good job of giving that belief over. And I don't know how you do that, because it's such an esoteric and it feels so far away. But I think because your story is so vulnerable and you're so exposed and it's so something we can see, like from the beginning of the book to the end, you're like, oh my God, I could actually see those steps and how she was able to step forward into each new challenge. You really do feel like you grow as a person just by reading it. The thing I find with all of our listeners, and 90% of them are women, this feeling of imposter syndrome where it's like, I don't believe that I would ever want someone to give me money or pay me for something. Like I think I'm a fraud. Like there's so many people better at this thing. Like, yeah, I want to start an Etsy shop, or I want to teach yoga, or I want to make my own makeup line. But Jamie's done that. Bobby Brown's done that. Someone else is making candles. It's this feeling of shame. What if I put this out there and like, who am I to like take up anybody's time? That is just so prevalent.
Yeah.
And
so prevalent.
I don't even get it, honestly. Like just the amount of rejection you just shared, plus you articulated in the book, and also being a little girl who was like in this sort of different kind of a situation where you were adopted. Like I think so many kids would feel intrinsically rejected. And this is the feeling that it's so easy to go to that place of I'm not enough and I'm a fraud.
I am obsessed with an idea that you have in the book about how all the hard things are going to, like we started with that quote, they're either going to break you or they're going to make you. And really that's up to you. And the stories you share in the book are really, they draw you in with they are both entertaining because they're well written and well told. They're gut wrenching at times because I can imagine what it would be like to go through that. But they act ultimately as a yellow brick road in a way that I found very enticing in your book. And one of the bricks on the yellow brick road was that your father was an alcoholic. And you said something in the book that I was really impacted by, given my wife, Lisa, and what she's like. You said, my dad loved me, and he was a kind and gentle man who quietly struggled with alcoholism. And the way that you described that was very generous. And you said, but there were times that you would sit and stare at the clock, and because you had to wait for him to wake up, which your mom would be off working. And so sometimes it could be hours of waiting for him to wake up, and he would wake up, or you would get to the time where you were allowed to wake him up, and then he would ask you for an hour or two. And then I just imagine you sitting there watching the clock flip until he finally gets up and you guys can hang out. And in that you said, my dad inadvertently taught me that women are superheroes that have to be stronger than men, because that's what my mom was, a superhero who's essentially doing everything by herself. And I was like, I know that it is, Jamie, I don't wish difficulties on anybody. But man, when they're looked at from the right lens, they make pretty extraordinary people. So that's a story you tell early in the book. The yellow brick road then leads to a photo of you and 7 of your friends, so you and 6 other people. And you break down. Every one of you guys has overcome. It's almost absurd. The fact that out of 7, 2 of you were adopted. There's breast cancer. There's learning difficulty. I mean, it was crazy. And yet, each and every one of them is absurdly successful. How do people harness difficulties like that to become something powerful instead of, leaning into the victim side, which anybody would understand, people pulling the victim card from that? But how do you pull something else?
The very first and most important thing on how is you have to want to. And I think that every human being can easily go into victim mentality on a lot of things that have happened in all of our lives, right? And it's a mentality that actually can, I think, reward you in a lot of ways, and also become a justification too for staying inside your comfort zone when it comes to things like going after your dreams. And it makes sense for a lot of people, right? And again, I think there's a time. I mean, I'm not going to speak to people that, I'm not going to speak to a lot of the really hard things that require a lifetime of work to figure out. What I will say is therapy is the best thing I've ever done in really understanding this. And I actually talk about that.
Does it allow you to recontextualize? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and to understand it at a deep level. And by the way, your show, like this conversation, to me, these are the things that are so important that we invest in ourselves and do, right? Because I don't want to stay in a place where it can be easy to stay at in my life. I think that the quote you started out with, when these tough times happen, do you warrior up or do you victim up? Do you level up or do you give up, right? The up is up to you. And I do believe why I share the story of my 7 closest friends is because I think this is important. I think a lot of people out there are like me and maybe have loving family, loving friends. But if you were to turn the volume up on all of them and they were to be your only inner circle, it'd be really easy for self-doubt to take over. It'd be really easy to dim your own light. And I talk about my journey of how I chose my circle around me. And it's never based on a commonality of life experience. It's my closest friends. And I think this is important for everyone listening, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have an inner circle that empowers me. How do I find one? I would say Impact Theory and Impact Theory University, that alone can be a part of your inner circle. That's a voice and conversations and information that you want to turn the volume up on. And I talk about this because I think this is universal for everyone and so important to do this. A lot of times people build their circle of friends based on who they went to school with, or things they have in common and all the stuff, right? Maybe it's a group of people from work because you're around them all the time, whatever it is. And I think that that's not always the right thing. I think who your circle is so important. And for me, I go deep on this in the book and talk about each one of their stories because I want to drive the point home that who you do surround yourself with, and when you judge them by their heart and how they pour into you and champion you and don't tell you this crap you just because you want to hear it, they tell you the real truth, which is so important. They don't get jealous when you're flying high. They want you to fly higher. I talk about this commonality of traits, and yet my closest group of friends have literally almost nothing in common. Their backgrounds are so different. They have different faiths and no faith. They one of them was homeless all growing up, then lived in the projects, and then figured out how to build her own circle and become an entrepreneur. And she figured out how to turn down the volume of negativity and lack of dreaming of all the people around her, for the most part, that she was raised in. And how did she turn that volume up on her own inner light? And I share this common thread, really just to inspire a mindset shift sometimes of, oh, you know what? My circle of friends, each person listening right now, my circle of friends, they don't need to think like I do, or pray like I do, or love like I do, or anything else. But if I surround myself with people that are truly telling the truth, loving me authentically, and uplifting and dreaming big with me, and calling me out on the BS when I start to talk myself out of my own truth, right? Which we all do. It's a lifelong journey. Talk about the power of finding people like that and surrounding yourself with them. And I think they can be people in real life. And I also think that they can be people that you let pour into you who maybe you've never even met, like your show for people. You know what I mean? I think that that's really powerful. Who we let speak into our lives and who we turn the volume down on but still love anyway is so important. Because one of our biggest mistakes is turning the volume up on the people just because we love them and they're our family. And then all of a sudden, that's all the noise we hear, and it impacts our whole life.
Talk to me about the ability to turn the volume up and down. That was one of the things I found really extraordinary in your book. If I were going to do a spoof of your book, it would go something like this. Somebody was really fucking mean. I cried like a motherfucker. And then I walked in the next room like a warrior. It's that over and over and over. I love that. Every time. Well, I mean, you actually have a whole chapter in the book about swinging your big balls, which we should definitely talk about. But first, give me the idea. How do you turn the volume down? When you said that earlier about the guy who said, look, people aren't going to buy makeup from somebody that looks like you. How do we grab the volume knob on something that gnarly?
Yeah. I mean, it is such a disciplined practice. It's such a skill. It's hard. I mean, just yesterday, I had someone do something that I thought was a super close friend, and I was just blindsided, and I felt so betrayed. And listen, we all go through these things, and they're hard. And one of my friends many years ago, Bob Goff is his name, he taught me this, and it just stuck. I just feel like it was so important to talk about it because this tool that Bob had taught me, where he talked about your own microphone and then the volume dial. And he basically... I imagine, right? Because, that I have this microphone. Everyone listening right now, imagine you have your own microphone, and you have to get into really good practice of who you hand your microphone to and let speak into it. And what I had to learn, one example of this is, my dad, who was an alcoholic, who was a good man with a really bad addiction, and love me the best way he knew how with his own capacity. And I remember I was, working, I was always super ambitious. I wanted to get a car and go travel, all the things. So I had 4 jobs in high school, and, I was working, one of my jobs, I was working in a health club, and I started as receptionist. And then they said, well, if you sell memberships, you'll make commission on those too. And I started selling a lot of memberships, and I was like, this is great. And so after high school, I didn't go to school right away. I moved out, got my own apartment. I was making like $55,000 a year, which was more than my dad at his job he'd been at. And I never forget when I made this decision I was going to go to school. I was like, okay, because I just wanted to get out, meet other people, and like figure stuff out. And I remember when I told him I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to school. And he was mortified. He's like, what are you doing? Like, do you know how much money you're making right now? I mean, he was so upset and so worried about me that I was making a huge mistake. And so I remember even in that moment, we all have experiences like that in our lives with our family, right? They're seeing things through their own lens of experience. But whether it's a story like that, or it's just a friend that you love hanging out with and you go to the gym with only, but anytime you share a hope and dream, all of a sudden you feel them lower your vibration. Like you feel it, right? Because they don't get it, or they don't like it, or whatever it is. Bob Goff taught me this, that basically you learn, oh, I'm going to take back my microphone from them on those topics, right? I'm going to talk to them about my workout today, or in my dad's case, what's happening on the news or whatever. But I started learning with my own big hopes and dreams. I don't give other people my microphone who are then just going to literally lower my vibration because of their own lens of limitation. And it's the skill you develop. And when you imagine holding your own microphone, listen, we all, if you were blessed to have a family or friends that you love, it's not like, you want to just X them out of your life because they don't understand your hopes and dreams. But learning to just not share them all with them, hold your own microphone, talk to them about other things, like what's on The Bachelor, or like what's going on with whatever, right? And love them, but put those boundaries in place. And then the other thing is the volume dial, and that's big. And, people have said things to us that have hurt us, probably universally. There's probably not a single person out there that hasn't had someone say something to them that hurts them deeply. And it is human nature to relive it over and over and over and over in our own head, to the point where we carve a groove and it's like it starts to stick and take root. And I think it is so important mentally for me. Like every time that dude who said no one will buy makeup from you, and there were so many other rejections that I talk about in the book. When I went to Sephora and felt like I didn't belong and I didn't fit in and all those things, a lot of times the most hurtful words we hear are the ones we say to ourselves, and the ones we make up, and telling ourselves we're not enough and all that kind of stuff. And I have to be mindful and intentional and literally imagine myself when those thoughts come up, stopping them, turning down the volume, and then turning up the volume on something else until I believe it.
Do you believe that your optimism allows this all to work? Because if you are looking at losses as in, well, this was meant to be part of my journey and this scar is actually attractive, because that's how I think about it. I think about all those losses as scars, and like that scar giving you character, and that's attractive. Do you believe that optimism was an incredibly big factor and ingredient in your success?
I think optimism is great. I think, though, that knowing why we're doing what we're doing, listening to our gut and going after our calling, like literally living our calling, I think that's the victory.
Hold on though.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. Every human needs levels of affirmation along the way to sustain that. Right?
Yeah.
And so in the beginning where you're not seeing those results, for many, and you might have, I've always seen results pretty quickly in my good calls. So I always try to think about someone who's not seeing it. So because they don't have optimism, they have delusion, and they think they're going to be, Beyonce when they can't sing, right? do you feel like believing in your calling gets affirmed along the way? What do you rely on in that beginning? Don't you think blind faith is actually completely grounded in optimism?
I mean, for me, my faith is a huge part of my life.
I'm going to take religion as faith out I'm saying I'm just thinking about you, young you in this moment, and I'm really fascinated by it. I'm meant to do this because what you're talking about is what I love, which is the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to get into your, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think the victory is the outcome, right? I don't think the victory, listen, I know how accomplished you are and everything. I know you're going to have the New York Jets one day. I know all that, but I don't think that's the victory. I think the victory is the journey of actually like stepping into all of who you are and not talking yourself out of your own truth. And what I mean by that is this journey of that we're talking about, right? Of course, optimism, of course, resiliency to get back up every time you're knocked down, of course, all those things. But I think that so many people listening right now, if they don't ever learn to get still and hear their own truth and hear their own intuition, I think what's going to happen, and this is what happens to most people, is they end up staying in their comfort zone. They end up putting their own immediate failures on a pedestal or other people's opinions or self-doubt. They end up talking themselves out of their own truth. And then they end up never actually becoming the person they're born to be. So for me, I don't think like the fact that I was able to build $1 billion company is the victory. I think the moments of me knowing this is what I'm supposed to do and trusting it, even when it doesn't make sense. And I'll give you one example, okay, of this. So, and maybe this will make sense because optimism, of course, is important. And I know what you're saying. But I think the biggest thing is learning how to hear yourself and trust yourself. I really believe that. There was a moment.
How do you define that as a term? Because I view that as self-belief and confidence and optimism. I think that you're such a, very quickly I'm like, oh, this is my sister. Like literally within the first 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, I see. So I'm trying to do, and I apologize because I'm hoping a different voice might do this for the listener. I'm trying to figure out what words you use to quantify. I fully agree with you, everything you're saying. I'm wondering if you view optimism as, so I think optimism, similar to what we were talking about earlier, sometimes gets pegged as delusion.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about, you see where I'm going? Because I could almost feel you doing that right now. And I'm like, I get you, sister. Because like this is why it's so great. Wordsmithing matters, right? Like, for example, hustle has gotten demonized as like burnout. So I no longer use it because I don't need it. You know what I'm going to call it? Work ethic. Call it what you want. Here's what I can tell you. For all the belief you had and all the love you had in doing what you were doing, I'm pretty confident based on your outcome that there was a lot of work ethic there. And so whatever you want to call it, and sometimes I just think about, I know the word hustle triggers people. So I use the word work ethic now because I don't want to ever not let anybody who cares to listen to me not realize that if you don't put in the work, it is impossible. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just had a big aha moment that what you're saying is optimism. I 1,000,000,000% agree with. And I'm thinking of that right now as belief. Same thing. Yep. And now I'm right there with you. Like, here's the thing and then I want to share one quick story with you too, that hopefully someone listening right now maybe needs to hear. But I mean, when I look back, it's like when people are like, oh, how did you start with close to nothing and build $1 billion company? It's like, yeah, I got back up every time I got knocked down and I followed my gut and I worked really, really hard. But I do think that one of the most important things I did was just like how to build $1 billion company from nothing. Like, I think one of the most important things is making that decision to believe that you can.
Yes.
And for me, that's optimism, exactly what you're saying. And I guess I call it belief. So yeah, 1,000,000% with that. And one more thing, just on maybe people listening to us right now that are like, oh, Gary, like Jamie, I trust my gut sometimes and it's wrong, or I tried it once and it didn't work, or I don't know how to hear my own intuition. I just want to say, I think that it is a muscle that we can all build. And I think people have to give themselves grace, right? It reminds me of like when you start to meditate, a lot of people try it and they can't do it. They're like, they go through their to-do list in their head the whole time they're trying to meditate, but you have to like give yourself grace and start. And what I would say, whether it's entrepreneurs or someone who's 14 years old and out there dating right now, I would say when you start to look back at your experiences and think about moments when you had a gut feeling and you didn't follow it. Like we've all dated like a sketchy guy or or had a, and like, you're like, his phone didn't really just like shut off for 3 days, or he didn't lose the phone. He went like, and then you kind of make that decision of like, okay.
Talk to me about, I mean, we are really vibing here. I actually want to talk to you offline because I just have had the thought. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so excited. Insecurity. Yeah. Right? Because you're like, to me, like thinking to my girlfriends, friends that were girls that were dating guys that I knew what the guys were doing, which was they were preying on my friends' insecurities, and sometimes brilliant, beautiful girls. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. Yeah. This woman, you really triggered something in me. This woman, I'm thinking about 4 or 5 friends through the last 20 years. This woman is subjectively, and if we had 100 people ask, is a million miles better than this man. This man has figured out the cheat code that if he makes her feel insecure, he has the leverage. Thoughts?
Yep. I think that happens every single day. And I think that we look for people that treat us how we believe we deserve to be treated. Like we find partners that meet us.
So you go with, cool, before you worry about jerk off Johnny, this is a big game of your own lack of self-love towards you.
It's your own lack of self-love, because here's the thing, and I don't know your friends, so I'll just say this. I'll make a general statement.
You'll appreciate this. This was mainly 17 to 25 years old, because you see that so commonly there. I mean, in later stages, people are in really deep relationships and you're in different parts of your life. When you're going through high school and college, you're spending so much time with people, you get better reads to the cleanness of the data is like, oh, this is really fucked up. When you're older, you're running in different circles, you don't really get to see it as easily.
Right. And I think that whether, no matter your age, this is what I believe. I think that when someone's treating us like crap and we stay with them, I think it's because we deep down inside don't believe we deserve better yet. And here's the thing, for people like that are dating your friend who's totally screwing them over, right? If you were to bring the best, most amazing, beautifully like kind person into their space, that same girl would probably put them in the friend zone.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because they don't yet deep down inside believe. Yeah,
it's what they're, and also people value different things through their life. One of the things, right now we live through a generation desperately interested in blaming social media for lack of accountability. They're just pointing fingers, right? Like if you are in a good place with yourself and your perspective is strong around gratitude, an anonymous person's negative comment is not going to ruin your day.
Yeah. And I think when it does, I think that's what's so tough, right? That's when it's a reminder to ourselves, like, oh yeah, we have some more work to do. One of the things I talk about in my book, Believe It, is just that ability to learn to turn down the volume on certain things and turn up the volume on other things. Like one example, we were 3 years into building the company, right? I was hearing no from everyone, Gary, like from all the retailers I dreamed of carrying our products that I used to shop in, right? I would save my tip money, like I mentioned, as a Denny's waitress, and buy products in the department stores or in
what year was this?
So we launched 2007. Like I quit my job 2007. I wrote the business plan on my honeymoon flight to South Africa with my husband. Not the most romantic way to kick off a marriage. And we both got back, quit our jobs, dove all in. I thought, Gary, maybe so many entrepreneurs listening, I thought, oh, if I just pour everything I have and actually create a product that works, like it's just going to sell. If it's that good, it's just going to sell. And then I didn't realize it would be I've had a lot of jobs in my life, but being an entrepreneur is by far.
Well, you especially also built that brand different than building a brand today where you can use Shopify and social media to build it. You had to get a yes from Sephora, Ulta, Walmart, Walgreens, and Macy, whoever it was. And that is difficult when you're innovating the way you did. Do you know that my whole life is no? Do you know VaynerMedia? A lot of people listening don't know this. Most brands don't want to say yes to VaynerMedia. We don't want to do a commercial and then go to sleep. Like, we don't want to take 12 weeks to do the perfect commercial and then do print ads that look like it, or banner ads, or digital programmatic. My whole life building VaynerMedia is no. Everything I do is Gary Vee's easy. I just do it with the audience. But VaynerMedia is exactly, I know what you're living through, because when you innovate and you're doing something different and you don't look the part, you didn't work at Procter & Gamble for 13 years.
Yeah.
Or like, what's this Washington State thing? Like, you know what it is.
Well, and it's wild because I would go in and start, I would pitch the product, and, we were staying alive on social media. So we were getting, people were writing just blogs at that point, and we were selling like 1 to 3 orders a day on our website, and people were spreading the word. That was the only way we barely stayed alive. But all the retailers, exactly what you said. And by the way, I've learned this, like, when you're doing something that's authentic or that is different, but even if it's just authentic to you, even in a crowded industry, by definition, it's novel. By definition, it's never been done before. And I really believe, looking back now at this journey and everything, I believe that, like, even a lot of visionaries, touted visionaries, I think they can't imagine anything being successful unless subconsciously they have proof in the back that they've already seen it and it's already worked. So it's like, of course, so many people are going to say no to your dream or doubt your dream if they've never seen it done before. And we had 3 years of every single beauty retailer saying, no, you're not the right fit. It's not going to work. You're not right for our customers. And by the way, we talk about gut feeling. I kept having this gut feeling we're supposed to go on QVC, because then I could actually show my bright red rosacea and prove live that our product works, unlike the photoshopped ads on TV. And this is just something to share for someone who might need to hear this right now, who's having a gut feeling, but they feel like they're wrong. Like, I kept having this feeling. And every time I would do a meeting with QVC, it would be a no. Every phone call, I'd finally get, like, I got their head guy, Alan Burke, on the phone. He's like a legend. He's responsible for building this $1 billion beauty empire on QVC. And I finally got him on a call, and I thought for sure it was going to be a yes. And because if he's taking his precious time, and it was about a minute into the call, and he said, I just need to let you know, we've reviewed your product with all the buyers. It's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC. And of course, I poured my heart out. I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And then we were down to under $1,000 in our bank account at that point. So I remember crying myself to sleep. And long story short, a year later, when I finally did get a yes to go on QVC, I took this big risk that I was advised not to by consultants. And I put real women of all shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. And I showed my own bare face and all the things that had never been done before. We sold out at the 10-minute mark. I was crying on national television because it's live. QVC is live to 100 million homes.
You knew the truth, and your heart would win, not, students telling you what to do.
Yeah, and listen, it was a big risk, but I feel like I know this lesson, that I know this, and now I've seen it play out with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years. But I know that authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure.
Love that.
Right?
Love that.
The foundation of your energy and the foundation of your drive and inspiration comes from somewhere. And I just want you, I know you've been on many stages and you've spoken all over the place, but where does that foundational energy come from that you carry with you?
I think, it's such a good question. I think that of all the things I've done wrong, which is a whole lot in my journey, especially in going from working as a Denny's waitress to eventually, building a huge company and all those kind of things. One of the things I did right was figure out exactly your question, how to kind of get still, tune in and hear that inner knowing. And I believe every one of us has it. And I think, for me, I was, no one in my family went to college. I was raised kind of, very differently than kind of this inkling I had deep down inside of the life I wanted. And I remember even in the days when I was working as a waitress at Denny's, right? And maybe so many people can relate to this who are listening. I kind of knew deep down inside, okay, I'm created for more, in the sense of I have more to give and more to create. And more to serve and more to see. And I always kind of knew it. And I went through this really lifelong journey though of knowing I was kind of created for more, but doubting it anyway. And kind of my whole life, actually. And maybe a lot of people out there may be in the same spot. And it's kind of why I wrote the book, because I feel like while it's my story of going from a girl who didn't believe in herself to like believing in herself and not trusting herself, to learning actually how to kind of like break through all the self-doubt and hear that inner voice and trust it. Go from doubting I'm enough to really on that journey of knowing I'm enough. And I just think it's my story. I feel like it's so many people's story out there, you know what I mean? Who are kind of in this space of maybe too, just like I've had while working in Denny's or any other moments in my life, this kind of feeling deep down inside of like, oh, I know there's more I have to do or give or serve. And maybe I'm in the wrong job right now, or maybe I'm in a tough season right now. But like, I know I'm created for more. And like their biggest obstacle is, how do I stop doubting it? And how do I like step into all of who I am, right? And all of who you're called to be. And so that's kind of the whole journey in this book and all that. But yeah, it's and listen, I still have doubt enter the room. When Shanti enters the dressing room, there's a moment where I'm like, in 2 seconds in my head, like, oh, wait. Am I cool enough? Am I in good enough shape? Am I like all those things enter? I'm like, I turn down the volume on that self-doubt. I turn it up and I'm like, oh, I know I'm a beautiful soul and a human being. So for that reason, you know, it's great me and Sean are meeting, right? It's like a life journey of figuring out how to believe we belong, how to believe we're enough. And not doing those things, I think, is like the biggest dream killer. It's the biggest thing that, like I still get tempted and Shanti enters the room. Oh, I'm going to shrink down and just like congratulate him on all his successes versus like show up authentically. And you know what I'm saying? And it's this lifelong journey. And like how I went from my living room with no money to $1 billion entrepreneur is figuring out how to get past all that crap we hear in our own heads, right?
Hey, I was going to say to you, you were on the living room floor with your laptop, with your partner, your husband, and you went from the living room floor not knowing really how you were going to build your bank account from the little money you had to selling your company for $1.2 billion. Now, I want people to know I'm not a person that chases a number. And I thought it was really amazing that you let the cat out of the bag first, because you really proved to people that it's not about the number. It's about the journey and everything that comes in between. And so, you know, I saw that. I still get the chills knowing that you did that and you went from where you went to and you talked about love and you did all these things.
Do you feel that your faith and your intuition is the same thing? Is that the way that God speaks to you or the higher power speaks to you to guide you on the choices that you're making?
Yeah, I think so. I think every one of us has an intuition or a knowing. And I think a lot of people haven't heard their knowing in a long time, but I think our knowing is always right. And for me, yeah, that's how I hear God talking to me is, you know, I've never heard him speak out loud. But I hear it through that kind of that still small voice or that knowing or that gut instinct. And, you know, a big part of my journey, like a lot of people see the kind of the highlight reel, or maybe they read kind of the press story that's like, oh, you know, Denny's waitress starts idea in her living room and builds, $1 billion company. But my real journey, my real story is like a girl who went from not believing in herself to learning how to believe in herself and not really even knowing how to hear that own knowing or hear that still small voice, to learning how to hear it and then trust it. And I think with every woman, but also every business owner, every esthetician, every spa owner, I think that, you know, I can talk about business and tips and all that for a million hours. But when I look at what made the difference in my journey, I really think it was learning how to go from not believing in myself to believing in myself, and learning how to hear my gut and then make this decision to trust it. I think so many times we are surrounded by so much noise, so much uncertainty, definitely in the last 14 months, so much noise, and our self-doubt has grown so large in the last, especially 14 months. But then we have, the noise of the self-doubt, but then the noise of other people's opinions, the noise of how difficult, like in my journey, I had lack of proof of success around me for a long time about my dream. And sometimes those things can get so loud that we almost can't even hear our own knowing anymore. And so I feel like, it's so important that we all learn to ignite our light again, because we've been dimming it for a while, but that also we learn really, I think the victory in life is learning how to get still, how to hear your own knowing, and then making a decision to trust yourself. That's when I think we step into our calling and into the person we're born to be, versus like staying in our comfort zone, in our self-doubt, and talking ourselves out of our own truth.
So yes, you listened to yourself. Yes, you trusted your intuition, but yes, you also worked 100-hour weeks, right? Yeah. So which I don't think I needed to. Well, go ahead. I'm going to get on her. I did so many things wrong, Daniela, so many things wrong. And I share them all for the first time in this book, because I don't want people to make the same mistakes I made. And you know what I mean? If I could save anybody nights crying themselves to sleep or self-doubt, then it's all worth it. Well, it's what's really interesting to me. So in the past, COVID, all the things, right? Estheticians have done a lot of pivoting, and there's a lot of women out there who have said, hey, I want to start my own line. I realized I was going 100 miles an hour this way. And when I had a moment to pause, I realized I actually wanted to go that way. And so there's a lot of people interested in private label and formulating and all the things. And you've got to have drive. You've got to have, your why has to be in the right place. But you got down to less than $1,000 in your bank account and you kept going, right? That's scary. That's scary. As leaders, when those hard things are going on internally, you still have to show up and lead and inspire your teams, right? And being able to do that and still feel the day was something I failed at for a number of years. Being able to do that and still summon joy was something I failed at for a number of years. And it's something, when I look back, I would do differently. It got to the point where, I was so burnt out and driving myself so hard in the business so hard that, and my husband was too, when I would get a phone call from my own husband, I actually, when I'd see his name on my cell phone, I actually would equate it in my brain to a work call. Like, that's where we got to that place. And so, for me, we had the opportunity to go public and probably would have made way more money. And I would fantasize about this idea of ringing the bell and all those sexy things. But I also realized, if I want to feel the day, live a joyful life, all of those things, become a good steward of my own body and a stronger leader for myself, for my family, and even for my own teams, I was at this point, Scott, where I had to trust myself not to trust myself, because I was so addicted to work at that point. And I knew if we went public, it would still all be on me, be on us to carry it, right? So part of why we decided to bring on a partner, right, which L'Oreal acquired 100% of our business, was to make that decision. I want to do this also joyfully. And so you don't need to sell your company to L'Oreal to have this aha moment, but I realized I was doing it wrong. I realized, and this is something that a lot of people go through this experience, where we're really amazing at our jobs or at building teams or leading teams or ideating or creating, but maybe we're not good stewards of a body. Maybe we're not good partners, or maybe we're just not even feeling the day and feeling alive and enjoying the journey. And so for me, having that epiphany was huge, because if I could do it over again, and I protected my teams, I made sure that, that they really were always inspired, that they, we did things that filled everyone else with joy. But as a leader internally, that was a journey for me to try and get to that point of realization. Of celebrating the wins. And so, I have to do that intentionally now. I have to be super intentional about
celebrating wins. When Believe It just made the New York Times bestseller list, that night I had so much to do. And I'm like, nope, you know what? I literally opened a half bottle of wine. I was with a friend and we each opened a half bottle of wine. We cheers. I poured it in this coffee mug and I'm like, I'm going to celebrate right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be so intentional about it, because before we know it, the months go by, the years go by, the decades go by, and all we ever did was work really, really well. You know what I mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.